They say your home is your sanctuary, but for me, it was the place where I first learned to hide my face. My earliest memory isn't of a birthday cake or a lullaby. It's the sound of my mother's voice, hushed and heavy with pity, telling my aunt, "It's a shame she didn't get her sister's eyes. Maya is the beauty. Sarah just has a good personality." Growing up, I was the shadow in the corner of every family photograph. My sister, Maya, was a masterpiece: golden hair, a perfect smile, and a grace that seemed to command the very air in the room. Then there was me. I was the girl with the frizzy hair, the crooked teeth, and the skin that never seemed to glow. In my family, beauty wasn't just a trait. It was a currency, and I was born bankrupt. My father, a man who valued aesthetics above all else, never looked at me with pride. He looked at me with a sort of quiet disappointment, as if I were a rough draft he had forgotten to polish. Beauty opens doors. "Sarah," he would tell Maya while I sat at the kitchen table, invisible, "you have a responsibility to look your best." To me, he would simply say, "Make sure you study hard. Sarah, you'll need a solid career to get by." The implication was never spoken, but it hung in the air like a thick fog. You aren't pretty enough to be loved for who you are, so you better be useful. By the time I was 16, the label was sealed. I was the ugly one. It wasn't a secret. It was a casual nickname, a family joke told over Sunday dinners. "Don't worry about the boys, Sarah," my brother would laugh. "Just focus on your books. Leave the heartbreaking to Maya." I would smile, because if I didn't smile, I was sensitive. If I cried, I was dramatic. So I learned to swallow the glass. I learned to let the insults settle in my stomach until they felt like a part of my anatomy. I remember my high school prom night. Maya was a senior, and the house was buzzing with excitement. Designers had sent dresses for her to try. She looked like a literal angel. I was a sophomore, helping her pin her hair, acting as her lady-in-waiting. When I finally put on my own modest dress, I walked into the living room. My mother looked at me, adjusted my collar, and sighed. "You look neat, Sarah. Very tidy, neat, tidy. Words you use for a bookshelf or a made-up bed. Never words you use for a girl who just wants to feel beautiful for one night." I spent years believing them. I became a ghost in my own life. I wore baggy clothes to disappear, and I stopped looking in mirrors because I was tired of seeing the disappointment reflected back. I moved away for college, choosing a school 3 states away just so I could breathe without the weight of their gaze. I threw myself into my work, into my passion for art and design, ironically spending my life creating the beauty I felt I lacked. But the scars of being the ugly sister followed me. I struggled to believe anyone who called me pretty. I sabotaged relationships because I was waiting for the moment they would realize I was a fraud that under the makeup and the styled hair I had finally learned to manage, I was still that unfortunate little girl. Then the invitation came. The 10-year family reunion. A massive gala at my parents' estate to celebrate my father's retirement and the success of the family. I didn't want to go. Every fiber of my being screamed to stay away. But there was a tiny, flickering flame of defiance in my chest. I wasn't that girl anymore. Or was I? I decided I would go, but I would go as a stranger to the person I used to be. Little did I know, a real stranger was waiting there to shatter the mirror I had been looking through my whole life. Stepping back into that house felt like walking into a cold ocean. The air was thick with the scent of expensive lillet and the sound of forced laughter. I had spent months preparing. I wore a silk gown the color of midnight, simple, elegant, and perfectly tailored. I had learned how to tame my hair into soft, sophisticated waves. For the first time in my life, I didn't look neat. I looked like a woman who knew her worth. But the moment I walked through the door, the old script began. My mother approached me, her eyes scanning my face not with affection, but with a critical lens. "Oh, Sarah, you single quotes improved. That dress is very slimming. It hides the flaws well. I felt my heart shatter, just a little. Even now, after all these years, her first instinct was to find the flaw. Maya was there, of course, the sun around which everyone orbited. She looked at me and smirked. "Sarah, you look so different. I almost didn't recognize you under all that effort. It's a bit much for a family party, don't you think? You should have gone for something more subtle, like you used to." The ugly one label wasn't gone. It had just been updated. To them, I was a girl playing dress up. I was a pretender. Throughout the evening, I was sidelined. When family friends asked about us, my father would spend 20 minutes talking about Maya's social life and her natural radiance, then turn to me and say, "And Sarah is doing very well in some sort of office job, I believe." She was always the smart one. He said smart, like it was a consolation prize for a loser. The betrayal hit hardest during the dinner toast. My father stood up, glass raised. "I am so proud of my children," he began. To Maya, who has always been the face of this family, bringing beauty and light to every room she enters, the room erupted in applause. Then he looked at me. And to Sarah, who reminds us all that inner strength is what matters when nature isn't as kind. The table went silent. A few people chuckled nervously. I felt exposed, destroyed. The glass I had been swallowing for years finally cut my throat. I felt the tears pricking my eyes, and I couldn't stay. I pushed back my chair and hurried out toward the terrace, the sounds of their laughter following me like a haunting melody. I stood in the dark, the cool night air hitting my face. I felt like that 16-year-old girl again, neat, tidy, and fundamentally broken. I looked at my reflection in the glass door and all I saw was the ugly girl they had created. I was ready to call a car, go to the airport, and never look back. I was done with them. I was done with the pain. "It's a beautiful dress," a voice said from the shadows. I jumped, wiping my eyes quickly. A man was standing near the stone railing, a glass of water in his hand. He wasn't someone I recognized, maybe a colleague of my father's or a distant relative's guest. He was older, with kind eyes and a presence that felt grounded and real. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice trembling. "It's just an effort, apparently." He stepped into the light. Effort is what we do for things that don't matter. What I see isn't effort. I see someone who has survived a very cold climate and managed to bloom anyway. I looked at him, confused. "You don't know my family. I'm the unfortunate one. The one who had to study hard because she wasn't the beauty." The stranger smiled, but there was a sadness in it. "I've been watching the room tonight. Sarah, I've seen the way they look at you and the way they look at your sister. They see a reflection of their own vanity. They don't see you. They've spent your whole life trying to convince you that you are a charcoal sketch in a room full of oil paintings. But they're wrong. They're my family," I argued, though my heart was racing. "They know me best." "No," he said firmly. "They know the version of you that makes them feel superior. But I'm an art historian, Sarah. I spend my life looking for rare things. And you are the most striking person in that room. Not because of the dress, but because of the fire in your eyes that they haven't been able to put out. They call you ugly because your light makes them look dim. Don't let their blindness become your identity." His words were like a lightning bolt to my soul. For 28 years, I had let my family define my value. I had let their narrow, shallow definition of beauty be the cage I lived in. But this stranger, someone with no stake in our family drama, saw something else. He saw me. I took a deep breath, and for the first time, the air didn't feel heavy. It felt like fuel. "Who are you?" I asked. "Just someone who knows that the most beautiful things are often the ones people are too afraid to truly look at," he replied. "Go back in there, Sarah, not for them, for you. Show them what they've been trying to hide." I didn't just walk back into that ballroom. I marched. The music was still playing. The wine was still flowing. And my family was still gathered in their golden circle. As I approached, I saw Maya whispering to my mother, both of them glancing at me with those pitying smiles. "Sarah, dear, are you okay?" My mother asked, her voice dripping with fake concern. "You looked so upset. Maybe you should head to bed. It's been a long day for you." "I'm not tired, Mother," I said, my voice ringing out clear and steady. The sensitive girl was gone. Actually, I realized something out on the terrace. My father looked up, annoyed by the interruption. "What's that?" I realized that for my entire life, this family has used me as a backdrop to make yourselves feel prettier. You called me ugly not because it was true, but because you needed a failure to highlight your successes. You didn't see a daughter. You saw a comparison. The room went dead silent. Maya's face turned a blotchy red. "Sarah, you're making a scene," she hissed. "No, Maya, I'm finally making an appearance," I replied, looking her straight in the eye. "You spent your life being the beauty, but you're so terrified of anyone else sharing the light that you have to tear your own sister down. That isn't beauty. That's insecurity. And Dad, you're so worried about opening doors with looks that you never realized. I've been building my own house while you weren't looking." I looked around the room at the family that had whispered about me for decades. "I am done being your ugly one. I am Sarah. I am an artist. I am successful. And I am beautiful not because you say so, but because I finally stopped asking for your permission to believe it." I didn't wait for a response. I didn't need one. Their shocked, pale faces were all the justice I required. The betrayer in this story wasn't just one person. It was a collective lie they had all agreed to tell. And the revenge. The revenge wasn't a grand act of cruelty. It was simply my own happiness. It was the act of walking out of that house and leaving there, opinions behind like a set of old, outgrown clothes. As I walked toward the exit, I saw the stranger by the door. He gave me a small, knowing nod. I never found out his name, but he was the mirror I actually needed. That night, I went back to my hotel and looked in the mirror. I didn't see frizzy hair or crooked teeth. I saw a woman who had survived the people who were supposed to love her most. I saw someone who was whole. The moral I learned is this: people will always try to label you to fit their own narrative. They will call you too much, not enough, or the ugly one, to keep you in a box where you don't threaten their ego. But their words only have power if you choose to wear them. My family still calls me occasionally. Their voice is now filled with a strange new respect, or perhaps it's fear. I don't care which. I found my peace in the realization that beauty isn't something you're born with or something you're given. It's the light that shines through the cracks of a heart that refused to stay broken. I am no longer a shadow. I am the sun. Please like and subscribe my YouTube channel.